this whole process. But once you're good with the legislative aid, you come by, they know who you are, bring them by good analysis, then you get to be known by that office. But never underestimate the person that's sitting at the desk, at the reception.
So I shouldn't feel bad if I go to visit my representative and they're not there, or even if they are there, and I'm introduced to an aide, because actually the aide might actually have the juice that I'm looking for. It isn't being pawned off on an aide. That aide might actually be the channel I'm looking for.
Yeah, the aide actually may be more effective than the legislator, because the aides generally are the ones that actually do the work. The legislature just goes down. The legislator's job is to go and get that work through the legislative process.
So what if I want to approach a representative who is on the other side of the bill, and so I know that they may not want to make the changes that I'm going to suggest, but I really want to talk to them and potentially sway them or point out something that I think that they're misinterpreting? What's a good way to approach somebody who's on the other side?
Well, okay, remember that these people are human. I think that a lot of people think that somehow elected officials are somehow superhumans or something, a lot like the rest of us. And if you go in yelling and screaming, they're going to think to themselves, how rude. Don't let that person in my office. Certainly never set up a meeting with them. Also, if you're talking to them from a knowledge point, they're going to listen better. If you come with respect, like, okay, so you're going in and you're having typically Democratic issue with a Republican, find common ground. I.e., take cannabis, for instance. I've talked to actually high-level people in Congress, U.S. Congress, that are Republicans, and actually the Republicans are getting more good with the issue. Say, hey, look, Republican, don't think of this as a cannabis thing. Think of this as you're for small government, right? You're a Republican. You're for small government. You're for states' rights. You're for the 10th Amendment. You don't have to be pro-cannabis or anything like that. Just be a Republican, and try to frame it from their standpoint, the way that they're going to look at it. And
I see. So suddenly it's not, we want to make this drug legal. This is about individual rights, and this is about the freedom of businesses to go into what they want, and the freedom to pay your taxes and be an American.
Yeah, exactly. So you're framing it from their point of view, and you can actually make headway that way. So in anything that you're doing with the legislative body, when you're coming into someone that's on the opposition, first, show no hate. Be very cordial. Shake their hand. Say, thank you for taking the time. I'd like to give you a perspective, and even if they still agree afterwards, you be polite. Even if they're not polite to you, and you shake their hand and you thank them for their time, and then you come back, right? And, at some point, legislators will, they'll feel for you, if you're putting in the effort, even if they're on the other side. And if you're constantly respectful, most of them will show that back to you. Some of them will never, but.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, too, because it will give them an opportunity to see you as a human if you're treating them like a human as well. So we're going to take another short break and be right back. You are listening to the Ganjapreneur.com podcast.
After a short message from the sponsors who made this show possible, Ganjapreneur will return.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today.
InternetMarketingNinjas.com is the online dojo of the highly trained and skilled Internet Marketing Ninjas. Disavow documents, reconsideration requests, panda and penguin penalties. Let our superior SEO ninjas confront all of your link-related issues. The Internet Marketing Ninjas are equipped to master any marketing exercise, content creation, authorship, link building, PPC, and more. Plus, build more buzz for your brand with our social media marketing strategies. Discover all that the Internet Marketing Ninjas can do for you. Visit the online dojo now at InternetMarketingNinjas.com. The The smoke is rising, and the next crop of podcasts devoted to cannabis providers and enthusiasts are ready to be harvested. Welcome to the Cannabis Radio Network, founded by respected rainmakers who have been producing award-winning podcasts for over a decade. Industry headlines, business updates, medical reports, marketing, and e-commerce education rolled up perfectly for your consumption. Let's grow together. The Cannabis Radio Network. CannabisRadio.com.
We're back to help ganjapreneurs grow. You're listening to Ganjapreneur, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Ganjapreneur.com podcast. I'm your host, Shango Lowe's. And our guest this week is longtime cannabis activist, consultant, and entrepreneur, John Davis. So, John, before the break, we were talking about the best way to approach our elected representatives is treating them like humans. And whether they're on the side of cannabis that we want them to be or whether or not they've got issues, either way, treat them like good people. And right. I would think that over the course of a legislative cycle, lots of really unexpected and ugly things could happen. What's the best way to deal with when, you get involved of making the sausage of a bill and things just like totally fall off their axles?
Well, I mean, what happens if it happens when this is legislative sausage being made? And I've been through a lot of legislative sessions, in the state and localities and actually in the U.S. Congress. And you've got a bill, and you're trying to usher it through the process, everything is going to appear to be coming off its axles, but really it's the way that it's done. There's going to be people on the other side. Now, you're lobbying for something. Perhaps you did your work and got in early and got a sponsor, and it's your bill, right? You actually wrote it, and you shopped it, and you got someone to introduce it. Well, now the people on the other side, you think they're going to say, wow, that's the best written piece of legislation I've ever seen? No, it's not the way it goes. There's going to be someone that's against you. There's going to be, the localities or the police or this or that or, private prisons, right? And those people are going to be attempting to make your bill 180 degrees from, what you planned it to be. And so it's a dynamic process. And then you're really trying to understand, who your opposition is. Who are those people on the other side? How can I get to them? A lot of people don't know that being a good lobbyist means lobbying other lobbyists as well, not just the legislators, but to find those people on the other side and say, hey, so what? Can I crawl into your head a little bit and understand it? Okay, well, yeah, we're natural enemies, but maybe we can, do you really need this? Can you soften on this part? And even work together in those ways, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the best bill possible. There is no perfect piece of legislation. It's all sausage. There's going to be things in there that you were successful in, and there are things that you're not so successful in. And that's just the way it's made. But, that's why they make another legislative cycle. So you can go in the next year and fix those things that you weren't able to fix this year. And to make sure that the stuff that you really want are in the bill. But, all sorts of things happen, then they can be people lobbying on your side, seemingly on your side of an issue, and but they could be doing it in a really poor way that is starting to anger people. People will get upset about your issue based on the behavior of people that come in and purport to be on your side. So
I can see how it would be
dynamic process.
I can see how even our own allies and different cannabis activists could get upset because maybe they haven't read the law, or maybe they don't understand how the legislature works, and maybe they're getting angry because I'm not getting more angry and yelling when, my communication style might not be to yell at legislators. I'm looking for a different solution. And so I can imagine that it would be challenging not only to work sometimes with folks who are holding different opinions, but also people on my own side for people who want me to be more radicalized than the bill is going to allow.
Nothing is worse for a cannabis bill than cannabis activists that are pissed off and want to yell at someone, because that's exactly what they do. And often you're having to be in there, and you have precious time there to lobby, and you have to spend the first 5 minutes saying, hey, look, I'm not those guys, right? And I understand the passion that's out there, but when the passion is misinformed, and when do you think that you're going to come into a legislator's office, yell at them, and then they're going to think, oh, yeah, God, he's right, I've been bad? No, that's not. They're humans. They're going to be pissed off at you. I mean, how rude of you to come into me. I'm an elected official and yell at me, right? So sometimes there's a lot of damage control that you need to do from people on your own side. And that's why it's important to build your own brand or your group's brand. Hey, we work together. We might not always like what's coming out, but we're never going to come and accuse you of being evil for, having a different view from us, because you got to remember there's another legislative cycle that you can be effective in. And if you're down in a legislature, your one goal, your sole goal, is to be effective. Like, all else is secondary, right? Because you're actually there trying to change legislation. And if you're yelling and screaming, you can alienate a legislator for life. And the thing about it is, they're humans. They can also be very petty. Sometimes they will be against something because screw you, that's why, right? And you never want to get there. And you never know, and I've seen this over and over again, you never know when someone that you hated last session is a key committee vote for you at this particular junction, right? And if you've alienated them, you're not going to be able to get that vote. And sometimes that's what it is. When it's going through the committee process, it's a matter of one vote. And if you don't have that vote, or the committee chair is sideways on you, you will never be able to usher a piece of legislation through. So, you got to watch your P's and Q's.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a great point to end on, too, to treat your representatives humanely and kindly. Make sure you do your homework. And if you don't pull it together, remember that there's always another legislative session. So, yes. John, thanks so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I had a good time.
John Davis is a longtime cannabis activist, consultant, and entrepreneur. You can find more episodes of the Ganjapreneur podcast in the podcast section at ganjapreneur.com. You can also find us on the Cannabis Radio Network website and in the Apple iTunes store. On the ganjapreneur.com website, you will also find the latest cannabis news, product reviews, and cannabis jobs updated daily, along with transcriptions of the podcast. You can also download the Ganj iTunes and Google Play. We are also thrilled to announce that you can now find the show on the iHeartRadio Network app, bringing Ganjapreneur to 60 million mobile devices. Thanks to Brasco for producing our show. I'm your host, Shango Lowe's.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without proper consent of CannabisRadio.com is prohibited. Forwarding the cause of legalization and research of the growing cannabis industry, one podcast at a time. The Cannabis Radio Network.
BBC News with Stuart McIntosh. The authorities in the U.S. city of Colorado Springs say a gunman who'd been firing at them from inside a birth control clinic is in custody, and the situation has now been resolved. The Colorado Attorney General says there's been a tragic loss of life, but didn't provide further details. At least 11 people, including 5 police officers, were wounded. The war of words between Russia and Turkey over the downing of a Russian warplane on Tuesday has intensified. The Turkish President, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has warned Moscow that it's playing with fire. Russia has suspended its visa-free travel arrangements with Turkey as part of retaliatory measures. Days before world leaders gather to discuss a possible climate change agreement, figures from Brazil show a sharp increase in the rate of deforestation in the Amazon. More than 5,000 square kilometres of Amazon forest were lost in the year to August. The Brazilian government says it'll sue the mining companies BHP Billiton and Vale for $5.2 billion.